everybody, I think, is looking at living their best life, right? We all want to have and make sure that our bodies are performing correctly and optimally. The brain is performing optimally. And if you've ever had an experience where you've done something different and it made a difference in your life, and you said, how would you know if if it could be different? How would you know if you could actually be performing a little bit better? You know, in life, we want to have that top performance. What if you could find out if you are living your best life, both physically and mentally? Well, today on our team call, we are going to talk to an incredible scientific research specialist here in Zinzino. And he, if anybody, is going to talk about making sure that we are living our best lives. Or maybe we are looking for our family, our children or our grandchildren, making sure that they are living their best lives and having the top performance in life that they can. What could that little edge mean? Actually, he has been working in certain fields his entire life. The exercise physiologist, a nutritionist, the strength and conditioning coach. He's used his life on exactly topics like this, mostly in like elite sports or working that difference in your life, what it could mean for you and your family. But actually, he's done a whole bunch more. So let's bring him on here. Dr. Colin Robertson. Hello, Dr. Colin.
Hi, Carla. Thanks for that very kind introduction. I've really just been having fun. I've just been getting involved and getting to do really exciting things for a long period of time. And it has been fun. Sometimes it's pressurized fun, but really when I hear you go through that quick list, when people ask me what it is that you do, or better still, when people ask my children, like, what does your dad do? They like on any different day, you ask them that question, they'll give a different answer depending on what project I'm working on. So on top of those things, really, I've been a clinical exercise physiologist, so supporting people who are overcoming various types of chronic disease. I am really, I think of myself as an environmental physiologist, because a huge part of what I do is helping individuals and athletes to prepare either for time zone changes because they're going to go and take part in a big sport and competition in another part of the world, or one of my favorite things is when someone decides they're going to climb Everest, or they're going to race across the Sahara Desert, or they're going to row across the Atlantic. Or, I'm working with a team of people who are in Antarctic at the moment. It's when people want to go to these crazy parts of the world and they want to perform well, they want to stay alive, and they want to look at their training before they go. So they were looking at aspects of fitness. We're looking at mental development, looking at kind of resilience training, grit, but throughout everything. So whether I'm a strength and conditioning coach, an exercise physiologist, an environmental physiologist, a clinical exercise physiologist, I'm always a nutritionist, because it's the old cliche, but let's get it out the way. You are what you eat. It's the cornerstone of your existence. So then when we raise the stakes, when we increase the demand, the performance demand, then we need to look at our nutritional needs. And that's not just for elite sports people. I've been functioning and operating in this area now for 27 years. I also work with a lot of the Forbes companies, the top Forbes companies, and just do things like this, just share stories, give them examples of what it is to cope in high performance situations and how to protect our minds, how to be able to focus more clarity, how to create calm in the mind in the midst of increasing pressure, because you learn that by doing in high performance. When you're on a radio GPS phone to somebody who's about to summit on Everest and they're concerned that they're about to run out of oxygen and they've got to make the return journey, your mind has to be clear so that you can help them to clear their mind, and in order to walk them down off that mountain safely. Just the same as when you're looking at a blip on a satellite where you've got 4 men rowing a boat across the Atlantic on Christmas Day, and you need to be in touch with them and give them recommendations on what to do because they capsized the night before. how we're going to repair our kit, consider things to do with kind of our thermic response. Clarity of mind for you and for them. And clarity of mind takes us a long way in life. It really does. Today, though, really, I'm going to talk about a few things. It's kind of nutrition for life, but it's the context I'm going to put it in is nutrition for sport. And I'm going to talk about some of those examples, because the way I look at sport through all my experience is it's just high performance humanism. It's what we're all capable of, okay? And it's just us humans under greater demand. That's all it is. I promise you that, okay? That's what it is. And so when we look through that lens, when we look at us under the greatest pressure and need, well, we find out a lot about ourselves. It magnifies the situation. But most of what we consider in those environments, they work for all of us in our daily lives, in our professional lives, our personal lives, and certainly in the choices that all of us might want to make for the people around us. If you're going to listen to what I'm going to chat about for the next however long it takes me, get comfortable. It could be that you're thinking of your children, your grandchildren, nieces, nephews, that boy, girl who lives next door and is pretty good at soccer, football, baseball, whatever it is. And you want to be able to pass on some good hints and tips, because if any of you have any kind of reputation for knowing something about food, about nutrition, then people often will ask you questions and want to kind of get your advice. So hopefully this will give you more information to share, because that's what it's all about for me. It's about sharing best information so that we can help more people. We can change more lives. So get comfortable. I've got a drink because I know what I'm like, and I can go on a bit. Some of this information I shared at the recent director's trip down in Portugal, which is just an example I'm going to give really of how we work in a certain area. But I'm going to get to that bit in a minute. So let me do the cliche and bring up my slides, because it's not a real presentation unless you've got a slide deck. And then let me ask the immortal question. Let me see here. Why is that not going big screen? It should do. There we go. Now we're talking. I'm going to ask the immortal question. Can you see that?
Absolutely. Excited about it. And we're so excited to have you here. I've just loved so far, Dr. Colin. We're so proud to have you in Zinzino. And exactly what people want to do is that really makes a difference with just that little bit more better performance, correct? It just makes that difference.
It's small increments. Winning change is done in small increments. So bear with me, folks. Let's go through, now that you can see my nice collection of pictures, mostly what this is. Okay, first of all, I want to start off by saying this. We're going to look at this through the lens of sport, but nutrition for sport is nutrition for life. You know, you can't be a good sports performer if you don't just have a really good nutritional approach to how you manage your life. It's not about, you know, having just these decisions that are made just about sports and performance. They're kind of the context that fits around what you do. The foundation needs to be good nutrition, and that's where we all need to be. And then we look and we respond to those certain types of demands that come our way. That's really this in a nutshell. When we look at performance in sports, though, there are factors that play an influence. Genetics, for sure. 50% of your genetic capabilities, potential, you inherit from your parents. And everyone used to think that that was the bit that really mattered most. You know, it was these genes that you got, and it was a lottery based on your mum and dad and your ancestral trail that goes all the way back. But actually, that's not true. We're far better informed now, and we know that epigenetics, you know, the things that influence how our genes are expressed, how they perform, are far more powerful. And guess what? The biggest epigenetic components are the food you eat, how much you move, and your lifestyle choices. So things like smoking, vaping, alcohol, all that stuff. But what you eat, the number one epigenetic that changes how your genes are expressed. So if you want to write a new you, start right now. Make a better nutritional choice. And those high performing, powerful epigenetic foods will start to tell your genes how to perform. I don't want to jump ahead, but I will do for a moment. The reason I'm at Zinzino the reason I joined Zinzino is I was working on an epigenetics project all about omega-3. And I was sat here in my study at home, and I was going, how do we fix this? We've got this huge global situation where people just don't have enough omega-3, and creating that fix is really, really tough. And, you know, I don't know what, I mean, on a different day, I've got different kinds of beliefs and things, but the phone rang. I was literally here looking at this. There's this computer and there's a computer here. I need the big one when I'm looking at like research papers. And the phone rang, and it was a good friend of mine who said, have you ever heard of a company called Zinzino? And to this day, I still can't believe the coincidence of it, because that's why I'm here. And that was the eureka moment that went, that's the fix. That is the fix with omega-3. That's what we need to do. Anyway, back to this. So the choices we make shape and tell our genes how to perform. And this is really important in sport. And if it's important in sport at this point, it's important to all of us, because it shapes who and what we are. And Carla started off by saying we all want to live our best life. I like to think that's true. 100% like to think that's true. But I think a lot of people don't know how to start doing that. They don't know what's the first thing that you do to start changing the gear to live your best life. And I think some people, sadly, don't believe that that's possible for them, that it happens everywhere else and elsewhere. And through my experience, that's not true. You can start to make an improvement on how you're living and how you experience the world and your health status, one good decision at a time. So through making those good decisions, moving a bit more, better food choices, thinking about those negative things and bringing them down, we can start to rewrite our own gene expression. Really powerful and important. This is how the food pyramid is supposed to look. Balanced diet, and we see there that at the bottom we've got our hydration, and we've got all our good veggies, and then we've got our whole grains and our good complex carbs. That takes us into our milk and dairy kind of sources that we should keep, you know, moderate to minimum. And then we've got our good fishes and eggs and meats for our lean sources of protein. Then we get to our fats and oils, those key omega-3s, also 9 and 7, and we still need 6, remember, we're just overwhelmed in it. And those processed foods should just be the tiniest little block that we have, you know, the odd treat, the odd little bit of confectionery, the odd little bit of convenience. That's how the food pyramid, in a way, could and should work. Sadly, that's the reality of the global food pyramid. That's what we're dealing with. And this is such a well-established fact now that anyone who's shocked by this, where have you been? Because this is getting published everywhere. It's in journals, it's in magazines, it's on online blogs. We're talking about this everywhere. 60%, look at the data that I have access to, that's quite modest. 60 to 80% in most areas that we see that are relying on ultra processed foods. But when we combine that with processed foods as well, that takes us up to probably capture it. And then our minimally processed, which should be the foundation of what we consume, is the bit at the top. So we're inverse. That's the problem we've got, is we are inverse. We need to go back to this. We need to flip it. We need to go back. It needs to look like this. But everywhere it looks like this. And let's make no bones about it. It's really tough. You know, these foods at the bottom and these foods manufacturers, and I don't mean to point out any specific brands. They're just an example of the big brands that are out there. But we know they work on bliss point technology, well aware of the dopamine cycle. Really, you know, they have a phrase that's called snackability. And a certain company marketed off this. Once you pop, you just can't stop. You'll consume the whole product, not because of the nutritional need, but because you just like it. The dopamine response, the taste. And rather than having 4 or 5, once you stop, you just can't. Once you pop, you can't stop. You go through a whole tube. So this is the problem that we've got. But what I want you to understand is that a lot of times our athletes who come into the system, so they come into an academy, they'll come into what we call here in the UK, we call this pathway. So if you're an Olympic athlete in the UK, you enter what we call pathway. And that's whereby, you know, you've established yourself, you've shown some ability, you started to win a few competitions regionally. And so you come under the fold. And in England, we have what's called the English Institute of Sport. So anybody who represents Team GB will come through one of those. We have Scottish Institute, we have the Welsh Institute, and we have the English Institute. And they manage these, and some of them are just children because they're showing that talent early on. And they'll come from a diverse range of backgrounds. And they've got mums and dads that just live the normal life. So a lot of these children step in, and then they meet someone like me who says, you got to stop all that. That's not going to get you to a gold medal in 10, 15 years time, because that's how early we recruit athletes. If you're an academy soccer player at a big club, and funnily enough, I was speaking to an academy just 2 weeks ago, Liverpool, a local team to us. I got up and did a food presentation to their mums and dads, because the minute they become a part of the academy, we have to influence how they consume food. So we go in and we speak to the parents, and why? Because they're the ones who are buying it. And they're the ones who are in their 30s, 40s, 50s, who are entrenched in this behavior. And you look around the room and they look like anybody else, which is a fix that needs to happen as well. So this is what we need to unpack, and we need to change this. But in reality, we need to change this for everybody. But when you're on the athlete trajectory, we manage it more. We get more proactive, and you kind of have to do as you're told a bit more. Which helps to a certain extent, because there's a whole career hinged off getting this right. But this is the problem that we face anyway. This is the problem. This is what we're up against individually and as a group. And if you're someone like me who's working in this space, this is my battlefront. I'm trying to change this on a global scale. I'm trying to get people to make better food choices, to live better, to not contribute to the statistics and enjoy their lives. Life's a miracle. The world is phenomenal. It's a mystery. Get out there and enjoy it for as long as you possibly can. And it all hinges off the choices we make when we eat. So we know that the problem we've got here is that these processed and ultra processed foods, they're high in sugar, high in omega-6. Again, omega-6 is not a baddie. We just consume far too much of it. High in salt. They are energy dense and nutrient poor. And this is really important, because this has led the conversation. So since 1954, the world has been taught to count calories. Okay, and this all came about with the advent of the processed food industry that was really gaining ground and wanted to explain people this new way to understand food. And because they knew there was less nutrients and more energy, and that could create problems with managing a person's weight, they started to teach people about calories. Teaching people how to count calories made the world fat, because from that point, year on, the world has got bigger. Our issues now with overweight and obesity are the pandemic that predates the pandemic. You know, we need to fix this. Look at the statistics around type 2 diabetes. Latest data suggests that by 2030, 1 in 10 people will have type 2 diabetes, but 1 in 3 will be at risk. Type 2 diabetes is a lifestyle disease that's entirely avoidable by not getting involved in all this nonsense. So it's energy dense, nutrient poor, people count calories, get bigger, doesn't work. It's low in dietary fibers. And we could do a whole talk on dietary fibers, why they're essential. The gut microbiota is the center of the human universe. Too many people abuse it. You are what you eat, but more importantly, you are what you absorb. And if you're not putting those good natural dietary fibers into the gut microbiota, you can't absorb all that good stuff. And even when we're generally eating well, but we continue on a daily, weekly basis to put in really poor stuff, then we're damaging the environment that's there to support the better choices we make. So we really do need to, we've got to take bolder steps. It takes time. We should always work towards improvement, not perfection. But we need to take bolder steps with ourselves and then be ambassadors for the change we want to make in our children and those around us. And high in saturated fats, you know, we just need to keep our saturates low. We don't need to eliminate them. We need to keep them low. Most people have a high saturated fat diet. So we just, again, need to inverse that and strip it back. So how we can counteract all of this. And this is really powerful and provocative, really. And one of the first, I was well aware of Dr. Paul Clayton. I knew of Paul way before. I've known of Paul's work for 10, 15, probably 20 years. You know, Paul is well established in the nutrition sphere, and well established because he's got very forward ways of thinking, and he's not scared to say it. And I love all that, always have. So I've admired him from afar. Again, when I got told about Zinzino, I went and had a look at the website, and I thought, who's behind this? And I brought up that page, and right at the top was Paul Clayton. I remember going, wow, well, there you go. That it all now makes sense. And Paul really was one of the masterminds behind this. There were other people involved as well, but Paul, you know, certainly deserves a lot of credit for what he's done with this, because he's looked at common factors and problems in all that mess I've just explained, and said, well, how do you give someone a really simple solution? How do you start to unpack it? You know what I mean? Because it is tough. And that's where the health protocol came into its own, which is simply about balance, restore, and boost. So because we've got such an issue with regards to a lack of those omega-3s and the systemic inflammation and the damage that's brought about, because we've got this huge skew towards those omega-6s and saturated fats, well, you start to put in enough omega-3. Simple. Makes sense when you think about it, but it has to be effective. People knew we had to do that, but didn't have an effective way of doing it. And now we do. And there it is. But you test first to find out what your status is. If you're not testing, you're guessing. I'm a scientist through and through. You have to prove everything to me. If you tell me it's raining outside, I'll look out the window. Believe me, anecdote and testimony means nothing to me. I need to be able to measure it. I need to be able to see it and quantify it. So we test. We can start to make inroads on that. Then you've got xenobiotic, natural fibers right in there, fixing what's going on in the gut. And then you have Extend, which to me is without doubt the single best multivitamin in the world, bar none. It's in a league of its own. And so what we do is we account through our health protocol for nutritional deficiencies. And most people have them: iron, vitamin B12, vitamin C, vitamin D, the list goes on. But we see this when we sample populations, we see that we have these common deficiencies because most of the diet is energy rich and nutrient poor. So people got loads of calories, but very few nutrients. The quality has been stripped out, and the impact of those processed foods damage the gut anyway. Hence, we're putting the fibers in, and then we go back to that cellular balance. So for a lot of us, and really as a strategy within sport, this is a great place to start, because we can start to unpack that habit, that typical ritual that people conduct and behave with regards to their food behavior. However, things are a little bit different when we start to up the stakes of performance and pressure, and we do need to take a more refined approach. So a food pyramid within sport really looks a lot like this. So you've got your balanced diet, good balanced diet. 80-90% we want to be from whole foods, from ingredients, not products. You know, we want people to eat well. Then we look at our sports nutrition. I'll explain that in a moment. It's far more simple than you think. And then we try to have a limited but really intelligent strategy with regards to supplementation. Because to me, I'm a food first nutritionist. Supplements should be intelligent, and they should provide solutions. They should be a far more clever way to bring about the outcome you want, because achieving it through your diet on a daily basis is really tough, especially when the daily pressures of life, the demands through exercise, training, competition, or for the rest of us, the demands of workload pressures, personal life, having to be everywhere at once. So that's where we should be clever. And anything that we put into that category needs to prove itself. I'm still strict about that, has to earn its way in. Let's just cover sports nutrition, because this gets overcooked. If you're on a good diet, you're more or less there. But sports nutrition is looking at your macros. And across the board, I'm really lucky because I get snapshots of what people do behind the scenes in big clubs and organizations all over the world. And everyone thinks it's a secret. And I promise you now, it's pretty much this. Carbohydrates, 3 to 6 grams per kilogram body mass, depending on your training day, how much energy you're going to use and how much you need to recover. Protein, 1.6 grams per kilogram body mass per day, in order to really help the body to synthesize protein, repair all that muscle damage through exercise, grow new muscle, get faster, stronger. 1.6 grams. In fact, there was a meta-analysis, which is really highly statistically powerful research paper. It was published back in 2017 that looked at all of the protein intake studies that there were amongst athletes and said 1.6, that's the magic number. Less than that, you're not quite there. When you go over that, it's a waste, 1.6. And then our fats, 0.86 grams per kilogram of your own body mass, and all of this per day. That pretty much is your sports nutrition strategy. Then you're going to go back down. You're going to look at that balanced diet bit and you go, right then, so what are my choices? What types of carbohydrates? Good complex carbohydrates, fibrous carbohydrates, dark leafy greens, proteins, lean choices, good turkey, chicken, red meat once in a while, but really good quality cuts, grass-fed, organic, so you're really stripping it down. Fish, plenty of fish. And then the fish contributes to the fat. So I promise you now, a lot of people think that this is a secret, working in sport. This is pretty much how most people work. Are there exceptions to this? Of course there are. Somebody's taken part in the Tour de France, they're going to have way more carbohydrate in recovery than that because they've just been out and cycled 200 kilometers up a mountain. But by and large, this is the kind of framework that we work to. Where it gets interesting for us and where it becomes challenging is the area of marginal gains. So what are those little bits that we can do that make the difference? Because sport is won in the tightest of margins. It really, really is. We're talking about seconds, hundreds of seconds of difference. Reaction time. One of my favorite sports is rugby. And here in the UK, we've got the grand final tonight, the Rugby League grand final. That's taking place. So I'll be watching that later on. I'm all geared up and set. And I've worked in rugby. I've worked in it nationally and internationally. Very proud to have worked with the Ireland team. I'm Irish by background. I hold an Irish passport. I'm Ireland through and through. And to be the head of performance for Ireland, taking them off to a World Cup, 2 European Cups, that was like a pinnacle. And for me, working with rugby athletes is everything you'd want from sport, because you're looking at endurance, you're looking at speed, power. It's a full contact sport. It's immense. But winning, apart from the tactical side, the physical side is all about who's the quickest to the ball, who can chase a ball quickest, who can turn quickest. It's all those tiny little things that make a difference. And so the example I'm going to give now isn't rugby at all. Forget all that, I was just getting passionate. We're going to look at 100 meters. And this is very recent, Tokyo Olympics 2021. You might know this. A lot of people who are on here, you might have enjoyed this race. And we look at this. This is the kind of detail that we look at when we're working as exercise physiologists and strength and conditioning coaches. We're saying, right then, what did it take to win? How can we influence that? And how, when it's the Olympics, how can we get in the top 3? Because that's all that matters. No, 4th place is first loser. No one remembers 4th place. Look at this in the picture. You don't even get in the picture. If you're 4th, the world doesn't care. None of the attention is on you. And yet, gold was done in 9.8 seconds. 4th place, 9.93. The difference of 0.13 seconds. It's not that long ago that we couldn't measure things that accurately. But that's the difference in crossing that line and taking gold. Obviously, silver and bronze straight behind. 4th, you're ridiculously fast, but today you didn't win. Reaction time differences. And this is really important, okay? Because time over the line determines who wins, but time off the line determines who gets in front. So it's that reaction time, that the minute the whistle blows, boom, gone. Gold, 0.161 seconds reaction time. 4th place was 0.141 reaction time. Winning was 0.02 seconds. So we start to look at that and say, right then, how can we unpack that? How can we start to make a difference? So I'm going to delve into a little bit now. So we've considered the health protocol and its impact on, that maelstrom that we have with regards to the average diet, and how we can start to repair things, how we can start to make good, we can create balance, that we can, feed the stomach, and we can boost our nutritional status. But I want you to look at this now with me for the next few minutes through the lens of just sport. And I'm going to zoom in on the omega-3, because a lot of people aren't aware of this, but omega-3 is a hot topic in sport. It really is. In fact, right now we're working with IMG out in the States, one of the biggest performance institutes in the world. And we're working with them with regards to balance oil and omega-3. And we're working with a lot of athletes and big teams across the board, let me tell you. And not because of Zinzino necessarily, but because of the recognized omega-3 need and an effective solution. So if we look at the index, first of all, this was established, believe it or not, only back in 2004, which doesn't seem that long ago to me. But that was really when it was established, consolidated in the literature. And this is an estimate. I'm sure a lot of you people are familiar with this. It's an estimate of red blood cell membrane, EPA, DHA, as a composition of function of fatty acid levels. Now, levels under 4% EPA and DHA of total fat are associated with increased risk, particularly of coronary heart disease, but really chronic conditions across the board. So we see 4 to 8% represents moderate risk, over 8%, which is where we want people to be, 8 to 10% is lowest risk. That really changes, going right back to the start, gene expression, right in a new you. When your omega-3 status is above 8%, 8 to 10%, where we want you to be, you dramatically reduce your risk of developing a non-communicable disease. You measurably reduce your risk of chronic disease and illness. However, a recent study just back in 2019 found that the average omega-3 index of collegiate athletes was terrible, 4.4%. This is just in the moderate risk group. And as you know, collegiate athletes is a good level of athleticism, really is. And it's representative and indicative of what we see actually in higher performing, in more elite populations. And why? Like I said to you right at the start, people are coming from diverse backgrounds. Their diets are just like everybody else's. That's what they've learned how to behave through food. And we need to fix that. Go towards that big balanced diet strategy for sports performance, and then look at where our supplements fit. But remember, we're looking at omega-3 now through a sports performance lens. So then we look at the benefits of it. And as you can see, there's a ton of references down here. None of this is just my opinion. This is what we do. We go and have a look at the data. I always tell people that nowadays, for the past 10 years, I'm a knowledge broker. I explain to people what's happening in the world of research. That's what I do. I put it out there and make it understandable. I help people to make it impact in their practice through linking them to the research. So when we have omega-3 levels right, we see increased expression of anabolic signaling molecules. What that means is that the body is going to repair better and in fact, where needed, bigger. Increased rates of muscle protein synthesis. So again, back to that notion of developing stronger muscles. Faster oxygen kinetics during endurance exercise. If we're getting faster turnover, then we can function at a higher level for longer, and reduced content of markers of inflammation, which is brilliant because we want our inflammatory markers to go up acutely in the first 24 hours, but we need them to settle so the body can repair effectively and not be in this inflamed state. So this is all the benefits we're getting just directly into sport off this omega-3. So this is interesting straight off the bat. Recent review looked at this and recognized that it can enhance recovery. When we've got that omega-3 level right, enhance recovery from physiological stress, as well as elements of cognition, such as reaction time. Now that's interesting. So when omega-3 is at the right level, above the right level of index, above that 8%, and we haven't even discussed cellular ratios, and we all know we want it to be less than 4 to 1, omega-6 to 3. So we're just looking at the index now. Wow, so we get enhanced recovery from physiological stress. Exercise, sports performance is all about physiological stress through training, through participation, through competition. And you can enhance recovery. It's all about recovery. My very first slide that showed you genetics here and exercise right underneath, recovery. That's a key aspect of it. And reaction time. Well, though, that takes us right back to here. Because if I can improve reaction time, then I might take you from fourth into third, second, or first. Because all I've got to find is somewhere in the mix of 0.02 seconds. That's where the winning's done. We're talking about hundreds of seconds, not minutes. So in that event alone, I could perhaps change history and change the outcome and change the life of my athlete just by that marginal gain. So that's what we focus on. Nothing's ever guaranteed in life or in sport, and sport represents life. That's why people love it. But that's where you focus down on. David Brailsford, who was head of Team Sky Cycling and British Cycling for a while, really become famous and synonymous with the notions of marginal gains. But in truth, marginal gains was a philosophy and a guiding framework. Before David Brailsford, he kind of brought it to everyone's attention. But what he did say is a quote that I love, is that rather than look for 100% success in one area, we look for 1% success in 100 areas. And I love that approach, because it could be that in the gym, the S&C, the strength and conditioning coach, gets a little bit more power out to the athlete, increases the power to weight ratio. It could be that the sports rehabbers and the physios are able to do some hands-on and facilitate a bit of better recovery. It could be that the psych guy and the physiologist helps with some sleep. And it could be that the nutrition person goes in and brings about a few keen changes, introduces and gets the athlete rightly balanced and set. And all of that combined brings a result. Change sport and history, and change that believe me, it changes the individual's life, because you go down in history, you have the medal, you take that home, you show it to your friends, family, you show it to the nation, you enter the history books. And even from a professional point of view, that can be the difference between getting another 4 years funding or not. That can be the difference between getting sponsorship. That can be the difference between stopping right now, ending your career, and actually continuing to function for the next 10, 15 years, just by finding a place where we can bring back 0.1, 0.05, 0.2 of a second that puts you in the winning position. It's that powerful, and that's how we approach it, and that's what we do. And so, because previously, I can promise you this, from the trenches, and a lot of the work that I do now, speaking to my network of colleagues who are working in high performance sports, this is why everyone is fascinated with it, because we've got this huge potential for marginal gains, not just one. We can get increased muscular development, increased reaction time, increased aerobic capacity, decreased muscle breakdown, and decreased muscle soreness. If that was on the tub, saying 100% guaranteed, do you want this for your athlete? There'd never be any left on the shelves. Every single person taking part in any kind of sport would go, I need that. Because everything that comes after that, those carbs, those proteins, all that kind of stuff, relies on this. This has to be in place. The system has to be able to do it. And so what we have is a safe and effective solution. You know, looking at the sports part of it, one of the things I'm most proud of since arriving at Zinzino is I was really passionate about making sure that we had informed sports certification. That's the universal, that's the worldwide gold standard to say these products are safe. There's no cross-contamination, and athletes at all levels are safe to use this product. Previously, we had informed choice, which is really, really good. But again, due to my sports background, we go, what's good, what's best? You know, so good's great, love good, but what's best? I want what's best. I think we all take that approach to where we're at in life. I don't think any of us are settlers. And I wanted what was best, and we've got it. So every single product, in fact, not just the balance oil, every single product we provide now has informed sports certification. So we have a solution. And in sport, that's what we look for. We look for solutions. We recognize the problem and we hunt down a solution. In life, I would encourage you to do the same, is recognize the problem and find the solution. And the first place to start with any kind of health fix is to look at your diet. I'm going to stop sharing because they're all the slides that I had. That's pretty much everything I wanted to direct myself through. And hopefully that's given you an insight on what we do in that part of the world, and hopefully giving you a kind of some understanding of the crossover, really, of that healthy, balanced diet approach, plus where it marries with and it provides the foundation for sports performance. But I want you to think of it not just as sports performance, but high performance. And whenever we expect a greater performance from ourselves, our diet should upregulate to reflect it.
I love this, Dr. Colin. I actually love what you said, high performance in humanism, because we want to top perform in life. You know, it's also in sports, and I know how you feel about sports. It kind of brings the world together. And you mentioned something about changing history for people in sports and maybe getting them to that third place instead of fourth, and how marginally different that can be. But it's actually, I'm thinking of it, I'm not going to be the elite sport person at the moment, but I'm thinking how many people need to hear this now in regards to having that, being the best, getting the best, and making sure that we're top performing humanists humans in general, or for our children or our grandchildren. Absolutely everybody needs this.
Absolutely. And I think sometimes people think there's too much of a gap. Humans are capable of incredible things. Absolutely. All of us, so capable. And I think a lot of people sell themselves short because they don't realize actually what's within their grasp. And we can all not only impress those around us, that's irrelevant. It's about being able to impress yourself and to step up and live and do the things that you want to do. We're physical. You know, we came into this world and it's a physical world. And I think everybody should be looking to physically engage to the best of their ability for as long as they possibly can. And again, the cornerstone of that is that what you eat, your diet directly determines the quality of that existence and what you can do and for how long you can do it for. So we're all performers. You don't need to be getting a medal or a cup or a trophy. You don't need to have a certain team kit on. We're all performers, whether you want to walk up your local hill, whether you want to go trekking, rambling, whether you take part in your local sports, or whether you just want to be vibrant and well, which is actually, I'd argue, is the most important thing. Vibrant and well and able to engage. And for a lot of us, and I see this now, you know, I'm the big 50 next year. I've got 3 children. My son is 16 and, you know, he's becoming quite a machine. And I think I need to be able to keep up with him, you know, riding a bike, going for a run, doing the things, you know, I want to be able to engage and be a part of that and not just a spectator on the side. And later on in life, I hope that I'm blessed with the opportunity that these 3 kick on and give me grandchildren. And I want to be able to pick them up. I want to be able to play in the park. I want to be able to do all that good stuff. And that hinges off my dietary choices now, investing in future me. It's the tracks I lay down for the life I want to live in 10, 15, 20, and 30 years time.
I love, and I have the same thing, Dr. Colin. I am also at that age. I have 2 grandchildren, and from Zinzino, it has made such a difference in my life to be able to run around with those grandkids, and it'll be great. I can tell you, it's great with children, but grandchildren are also amazing. I have one last question before we let you go to your rugby matches, and that is, you know, Zinzino, you said it's the best. That's why you're here, and we talked about changing the future and what this really can do. How do you see what we're doing with getting the word out and why we should be out here getting the word out to absolutely everybody? What do you see as in the future?
I mean, the thing to recognize, I think it's different for me. And I want to share this because hopefully it'll kind of give you an assurance. I get to see where the global conversation around nutrition is and nutritional need. You know, I'm actually representative on one of the standards panels for the World Health Organization. So along with UK Active and Europe Active, these are panels that I sit on. So I get real insight to the conversation. And what everyone is starting to switch on and starting to look for, because people start to recognize things as the evidence emerges. We sit at the highest table with regards to this. This is why, remember I said earlier on, what's good, what's best? I never wanted to join a company that was good. I wanted to do something that's best so that we can make the best difference and we can do the best by others. People are coming to us. We're in a very beneficial situation now where more and more people are coming to us, and they are approaching us proactively and saying, right then, we understand it, we get it, what you've done, what you've got. Right then, how do we make this reach more people? This is why if I was to tell you the institutes that are coming forward to work with us from a research point of view, it's phenomenal, and proactively knocking on our door to access our information and to use our product in what they do. More and more people, and actually COVID did this a little bit, maybe a big bit. More and more people have switched on to this notion now that, first of all, nutrition is individualized. What I need to eat versus what you need to eat, Carla, are probably got huge differences in them. Even though there's commonalities, there's huge differences. And it's like for every person on this chat. So people are recognizing that. So they want to look under the hood and look at themselves. So test-based nutrition, it's only going to become more and more commonplace. And people are going to look for reliable places to get that done. And also people are starting to recognize that there is a real issue with the way we consume food, and that it does sit at the heart of many of the problems we face. And so within that, more and more people are saying, what can I do that will make a positive difference today? I know you're going to tell me to quit this and stop doing that, and that's going to be hard, and it's going to take days and weeks and months. What can I do today, and what can I do tomorrow that'll start to make a positive difference? And that's where epigenetics comes in. And that's why I always tell people I'm an add before you subtract nutritionist. Add Extend, add balance oil, add the prebiotic, put xenobiotic in. They will start to make a difference immediately to your health status. You will start to improve. From the first sip, from the first tablet, you will start to improve. And then you're already building a legacy and a track record of success. Gain confidence from that. Establish it as a habit. Believe in it, commit to it, see it through, and use that as the vehicle to start making other positive changes. You just need the one that's going to make the biggest difference, and then you can start to add to that. And I'm 100%, I'm very proud to work where I work and represent who I represent. And I am confident as a registered nutritionist, as a well-seasoned scientist, researcher, whatever, that this is the single easiest, most positive, reliable step you can make with your diet. So just commence.
I love that. Well, thank you so much, Dr. Colin, and for all of us. Winning is done in small increments, and everything you've learned today, we need to get the word out to help people have nutrition for life and to be a top performer in life. We want to thank you, Dr. Colin, for taking the time and being here. We absolutely are so honored that you are here in Zinzino and working to always be the best, not just where we are now, but we're always going to be working and improving to always be that number one. Thank you for your time, Dr. Colin.
Thank you. It's a privilege. Thank you very much. And enjoy the rest of your day, good people. And I look forward to seeing you all further down the road. Thanks, Carla.
Thank you, everybody. And
Thank you.
Thank you.
Awesome.
Bye.
Thank you.
Thank you.